It's the night before. I want to make some overnight oats, so I'm going to show you how I make the basic version. We're going to start with some rolled oats and equal amounts of oat flour. A mix of both of these creates the best texture in my opinion, but of course if you only have the rolled oats, just use the rolled oats. So we're going to do equal amounts of these. 2 tablespoons of chia seeds, a pinch of salt, and then about half a container of some thickened plant-based yogurt. I use soy yogurt here, but you can use whatever you like. I don't measure this, I just kind of dump in about half a container. And this is gonna make the oats very thick and creamy. And then lastly, some plant-based milk. I like to use soy milk for this, for the gains. Now obviously at this point I would add any mix-ins that I want to do, like cinnamon, vanilla, cocoa powder. For this basic version, we're just gonna keep it at this. Just give it a good mix. Make sure all of the chia seeds are hydrated. Okay, now we can just set this in the fridge overnight. And now that we have the basic variety out of the way, we can get into some fun flavor combinations. Alright, to start the 13 recipes, I made perhaps the most fun one first. As the base, I used a serving of my plain overnight oats that I just showed you, adding some vanilla in there for a bit of extra flavor. When it comes to toppings, I decided to use some strawberries, which I cut into small pieces. On top, I then used some salted pretzels, which I crushed with my hands, as well as a small drizzle of maple syrup to get that sweet and salty effect. The pretzels add such a nice crunch, and if you love sweet and salty like I do, you will love these oats. To make the chocolate orange overnight oats, I very simply add some orange zest and cocoa powder to a batch of plain oats and set them in the fridge overnight as always. I actually used to think I didn't like the chocolate orange combination, but I used to think that about a lot of foods until trying them, and now I love it. Now the next morning I decided to quickly heat up these oats on the stove because 1, it was pretty chilly and rainy on this day and I just needed a warm breakfast, and 2, because I wanted to add some choc chips on top and they get nice and melty when the oats are warm. But of course you don't need to warm them up, you could also just melt the chocolate instead if that's easiest for you. Of course, to go with the orange flavor, I had to use my orange spoon for eating. And let's be honest, anything chocolate will be delicious, but these are actually so good. I definitely enjoyed having them on a cold morning. Moving on, we're making an idea inspired by Emmy Lucas, and we're starting by soaking the peanut butter oats. Whenever I mix in any kind of nut butter, I like to mix it with the yogurt first to make it super smooth and ensure there's no clumps anywhere. And this way everything tastes like peanut butter, which is ideal if you ask me. So I then add all of the other ingredients and mix it before moving on to prepping the fruit, which in this case is an apple, which I cut into quite small pieces and then transfer to a small pot along with some blackberries. I cook these down for about 5 minutes until the apple has released some juice and you have some nice soft fruit to layer at the bottom of the jars. On top of the apple and blackberry mix, I then add the oats, which have thickened nicely at this point. Clearly did this in a very aesthetic manner. And a sprinkle of flaky salt to finish as always. And this is what they look like the next morning. The oat mix has thickened up even more and the apples and blackberries will have released some more liquid to stir through the peanut butter oats. I tested this with almond butter too, which tasted great, so feel free to use any kind of nut butter you enjoy here instead of the peanut butter. I could keep talking about these for 10 more minutes, but all I'll say is that this is actually one of my favorite recipes from the video. It's quite simple but so delicious. I feel like lemon poppy seed is a flavor combination I always forget about until I make it again and then remember how much I love it. So these lemon poppy seed overnight oats were much enjoyed in my house. They start with a base of plain oats, added in some lemon juice, lemon zest and poppy seeds, and put in the fridge to set. And the next morning I quickly stewed some frozen blueberries, just with a bit of cardamom for extra flavor to have as the topping, and added these on top along with a sprinkle of salt and enjoyed. The combination of warm blueberries and the cold oats was so nice, and lemon poppy seed is just always a winning combination. So, fun fact, I went to Amsterdam a couple of weeks ago, and in two of the bakeries that we visited, we had these fennel seed and raisin buns, which were so delicious. So I thought to use that flavor profile of fennel seeds and raisins for my breakfast. I just added the raisins and ground fennel seeds straight in with the oats, chia seeds, and the other ingredients that we've all seen at this point. Top these with a good drizzle of tahini in the morning. Now I think the fruit is very interchangeable here. Just use whatever you like. I went for red currants because they're in season here. I also added some extra soy milk for creaminess, and eating this made me want to go back to Amsterdam immediately. Moving on, these marble oats look quite fancy, but they are honestly so simple to make. I just flavored the basic oats with a bit of vanilla and maple syrup, and then in the morning divided the mix into two, adding some cocoa powder to 1/2. I gave it a good mix and then layered the oats in a jar, along with some defrosted raspberries as well. I feel like this goes without saying that you can also just serve them in a bowl, maybe do a bit of a yin-yang situation, and then enjoy. This next flavor is one I tested I think like 4 times until getting it right, but now I am very happy with this combination. You might know golden milk as a drink that's made from turmeric, ginger, black pepper, some sweetener and milk, and we're essentially taking that and some cinnamon and cardamom, simmering the milk on the stove for 2 minutes to infuse and pouring it over the base oat ingredients. I do recommend cooking the spices in the milk first, as the flavor does turn out a lot better this way. I also added some soy yogurt here, but not as much as I usually would, and left it to soak in the fridge overnight. So then the next morning, as you can see, the oats turn out quite thick because we added the milk while it was hot. If you want them to be a bit more runny, just add more milk. I add some more yogurt on top of the oats for a bit of extra creaminess, as well as some cherries, but banana is also delicious. A drizzle of almond butter and a sprinkle of flaky salt. Strawberry and mint is a combination I know very well from my childhood because my mum would always make strawberry mint jam in the late spring. To the base oats, I added in some lime zest and a touch of maple syrup, and in the morning topped them with finely diced strawberries, fresh mint, and a bit of lime juice. For the mint, I recommend adding this fresh in the morning instead of the night before because it can easily brown and wilt if it sits in the fridge, so that's just a little tip. Moving on, pineapple is honestly not a fruit I reach for very often, but I wanted to try this combination, so here we are. And another reason is that I simply wanted to use the pineapple peeling machine in the supermarket. I am a child. Anyhow, I make the base oats with a bit of grated ginger. If you don't have ginger, you can also soak the oats with some ginger tea bags instead. Looking back, some kind of sweetener would have made these a lot better as well, but you live and you learn. The next morning, I transfer the oats into a pretty bowl and then top them with a pool of tahini along with the pineapple slices. Pinch of flaky salt to finish, and that's it. Now, this is one recipe that's a bit more labor intensive, I would say, and it's once again inspired by something Amy Lucas shared on her Instagram, I think last year, and this is another flavor in my top 3 from the video, although it's hard to choose to be honest. I started by roasting some sliced peaches with maple syrup until caramelized and sticky. I then added about half of these peaches into a blender with oats and the other base ingredients and blended these up until super smooth. I let the oats sit in the blender for a few minutes to thicken slightly and then pour them into some jars. So then after dividing the oats, I add on top the leftover roasted peaches, and for some crunch I add some toasted macadamias, but any other nuts will work here, and a sprinkle of flaky salt to contrast the sweetness from the peaches and maple syrup, and then I set them in the fridge overnight. And this is me doing a taste test the next morning. I was so impressed with these. They are so good. Definitely more effort than the others, but I've made these quite a lot since filming this video. And if you prep multiple servings in advance, the extra time is so worth it. Chocolate and cherry is one of my favorite flavors, and I actually thought of not including them into this video for being too basic, but I think they do deserve a spot. So I made a quick cherry compote and added these on top of some chocolate overnight oats along with some of the cherry juice, topping this with some almond butter, although hazelnut butter would also work great here if you have that on hand, some salt, and I was ready to dive in. It's a classic for a reason. What can I say? So the idea for these chai overnight oats came from me making chai porridge quite a lot last fall and winter, and therefore I had to try it with overnight oats as well, and dare I say, it works even better because the flavors have more time to get infused into the oats. These were a 10 out of 10, honestly. So I start by once again heating up some milk on the stove and adding a chai tea bag in there, bringing this up to a boil and then reducing the heat to a simmer for about 4 to 5 minutes. This time I actually added more liquid than usual because I didn't want them to get too thick, and then poured the milk over my base ingredients before letting it cool down a bit and then setting it in the fridge. In the morning, the tahini is very necessary in my opinion because chai and tahini are a match made in heaven. But for other toppings, you can honestly do whatever you like. I had some peaches on hand which I quickly cut up and added on top, and the texture of the oats was actually so good. Wow, 12 recipes later, one more to go, and you know me, I like to end videos with a banger, and these raspberry blended oats with a chocolate shell are exactly that. Similar to the caramelized peach oats, we're blending the berries together with the base ingredients until smooth, and then I transfer this mix into some jars on top of some extra raspberries that I had also defrosted. To make the chocolate shell, I melt some dark choc chips and then pour these over the oat layer. After a sprinkle of salt and a night in the fridge, or even after just an hour, the chocolate will be nice and solid, so you can crack open the top using a spoon and enjoy the mix of berries and chocolate underneath. Okay, and this recipe wraps up all of the flavors of overnight oats I've been enjoying. I have honestly eaten so many oats this past week because I filmed this entire video in 1 week, so I had 2 breakfasts almost every single day and then oats as a snack as well. I might need a break, but probably not. All of the flavors from today's video I have listed with a photo at the bottom of my basic overnight oats recipe on my website, which I will of course link in the caption. Feel free to refer back to that post whenever you're feeling uninspired with your breakfasts. Alright, that is all for now. Thank you for watching and I'll see you soon.